What's going on, guys? This is Real Deal Fantasy HQ with your boy LQ back in for another great episode. And today's episode is a very special episode. It's a Rams episode. And I try to avoid talking about Rams players because they're my guys. I can come up biased. And, some people will say I'm gassing it, or some people will say I'm focusing too much on Rams players. So I just try not to do it at all. And also, I hate talking bad about my Rams players. And I think this episode will have me coming off, talking down on my dude Tyler Higbee. Today is a Tyler Higbee versus Gerald Everett. It's just a conversation, just something you need to know, information going into draft day so you're not getting sucked into that hype train. So I don't want to waste any more time. Let's get right into the episode. So let's just jump right into it, man. It gets crazy when you got some people saying Tyler Higbee will be a top 5 tight end. Tyler Higbee, will be week to week. He's a start and forget. And, he had 5 games in the last back end of the season with 100 yards, and he had touchdown here and there. And it's like, you got to understand something, man. This is the Rams, for one. And 2, a top 5 tight end next year, people. Let's really think about that. Let's honestly try to wrap our head around that. So we have to remember Gerald Everett is also there. Now, you're probably thinking, the 12 personnel with the Rams, they're moving away from it. And, the 2 tight ends on the field, they're not going to do much. But you got to understand, Gerald Everett was hurt. So, therefore, it took 3 years and 12 weeks for us to get life out of Tyler Higbee. That's what bothers me the most, because people are just jumping on this hype train, making it bigger than what it needs to be. He's a very good tight end. Don't get me wrong. Gerald Everett is also a very good tight end. But there's some things in here that are getting tangled and screwed up, and then bad information is being put out. So you go and jump on that Higbee train. I know people are trying to, I'll say, he's your tight end 1. I cannot agree with that. I cannot jump on that, because a tight end 1, I can depend on him week to week. Now, if I'm looking for a tight end that has some type of upside that's in a tight end friendly offense, then okay, cool. But with an ADP right now in the 8th round, it's not terrible. It's still my problem is there's still a lot of value there with some guys that are falling in that 8th round that I really need on my team, like a running back or, a wide receiver. I'm not really focused on tight ends when it comes to draft day, because I honestly only need one. And then I can stream or, pick up somebody on the waivers or whatever, or trade or whatever the case may be, to get a guy to be in that place for a guy that, is on bye. But this is the problem here. Gerald Everett exists, and he exists. And I don't understand how people are forgetting. A lot of people like to jump on these hype trains and then start Xing people out so you can forget about Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett was the athletic, route running tight end, not Tyler Higbee. Tyler Higbee is only there to block, honestly. Now, when they run the 12 personnel, you got Higbee and Gerald Everett on the same on the field at the same time. You think it's equal opportunity, but it's really not, because we know Higbee's there to block. He's there to block because our O-line is trash. So any help, any additional help to have Goff have a clean pocket, it's going to be done. You know what I mean? So Tyler Higbee is going to be there to block most of the time. Now, what I do like is that Tyler Higbee gets involved in the red zone a lot, and he's probably the second or third option. It all depends, but he's not getting more looks than a Cooper Kupp in the red zone. So that is some type of balance or some type of upside with Tyler Higbee. But I feel like you can't be drafting the guy as your tight end 1. You can't be drafting a guy in the 8th round or 7th round, that high, with there's still good value there. I'm all full send of drafting Tyler Higbee. It's just a matter of where you're taking him, if you're reaching for him, really, because it's I'm not really going to draft a guy who's not a focal point in that offense, because we could look at all these other teams. We could look at the Chiefs, Eagles, Ravens. We could look at all these top, real top 4 tight ends that we know of, and try to compare it to a Rams offense, which doesn't make sense. The Rams target their wide receivers 64% of the time. Tight ends, only 25%. So it's you're in this big unlopsided, debate of who's going to be the focal point of that offense, and it's not going to be a tight end. Sorry to break your heart, but it just is what it is. Now, we look at the Ravens. The Ravens target their tight ends 42% of the time, and then they target their wide receivers 40% of the time. So what does that tell you? It's a tight end friendly offense. Eagles, Ertz, Dallas Goedert. It's a tight end friendly offense. Like that's what they run. That's what we know. Kelsey, 42% of the time that the tight ends are targeted in that offense. Come on, it makes sense. Now the Rams, 25% compared to a 42%, target share. So it's like it only makes sense to honestly just be like, damn, he's not really in a tight end friendly offense. He's not really the focal point of the offense. Like, is he going to out target Cooper Kupp? Is he going to out target Robert Woods? Is he going to out target, the wide receiver 3 if it's Josh Reynolds or Van Jefferson? Maybe they're in the wide receiver 3 range, but I don't see him being like the first look. Like the Rams haven't had a tight end as their focal point since Jared Cook, and that was in the St. Louis Rams days. So it's been so many years removed from that. So I honestly want you guys to think like, yes, he had a good end of the season, but so did Alex Collins. What happened to him? He had a great back end of the season. He was a waiver wire hero. But then next season, he finished RB 41. Let's talk Dante Pettis. 5 games in a row, he showed flashes of being a nice, valuable flex. And then what happened last season? Shit the bed. You know what I mean? Got burned. Justin Forsett, another Ravens, running back, it just happens to be, but finished RB8 one year. And then next year, he finished RB47. You see what I'm saying? Like, you just can't sit here and try to bank on that. And then somebody who's in Higbee's position, Eric Ebron, he was tight end 4. And then next season, he's not even top 20. You see what I'm saying? So values are being raised and the hype trains are being like created and monsters are being made to put you in wrong directions, not setting you up for success. So I like the people who watch my videos. I like the people who show me support and respect my perspective, but I like to get deep into it. Like, I don't understand how top 5 is coming out of people's mouths. How is top 5 coming out of Tyler Higbee that, had only 5 games that put him on fantasy radars? Like, that I'm not a big fan of, and I'm going to draft responsibly, and I hope you guys draft responsibly who, follow the Wolfpack, who don't end up being sheep getting sucked into that whirlwind of just a headache. You know what I mean? Like, Tyler Higbee's not going to be your week-to-week guy. He's going to have his weeks. He's going to have, a couple games here and there where he's going to have like 2 touchdowns, 50 yards, and like 6 catches. Woo, great. You know what I mean? But then the next 2 weeks after that, you can't really bank on that happening again because, again, the tight ends aren't a focal point. Let me say that again. 25% of the time, tight ends were targeted. But if we look into the first 12 weeks with Gerald Everett, when he was there, they were only targeted 22% of the time. So obviously from 22% the first 12 weeks to 25% to end the season, obviously that gap right there is when he started going off those 5 games. So don't think going into the next season like Sean McVay's going to wake up and be like, hey, I know we paid a Higbee in September. We paid him this long contract, long term, 4 years or whatever. But let's make him the focal point. Let's take away targets from Kupp and Woods and whoever else. Let's take away, our targets from our running backs. Let's not throw our running backs at all. You know what I mean? To get 42%, target share between, the tight ends and wide receivers and running backs. So you got to think like, Tyler Higbee's also a Fisher guy. McVay can't be trusted in anything he says. So coach talk coming out of the Rams camp, don't believe it. You know what I mean? We were told Gurley was healthy. We were told Gurley will be utilized at 100%, but we only seen Gurley used 60% of the time. We saw Gurley just not exist in the Super Bowl as well. And McVay saying, oh, kind of forgot to use Gurley. You liar! So can't be trusted. You can't trust anything McVay says. You can't trust coach talk. You can't trust like camp talk or anything like that. Just wait and see. That's why I don't want you guys reaching on Higbee in these high rounds where there's still great value in other positions because, again, he's a Fisher guy. I don't think that McVay moved up, in the second round, had a microscope under him, combine and big talks about him, having big plans for him moving in the future. But, yeah, that didn't happen with Higbee. That happened with Gerald Everett going in the second round, tight end. Not to mention, just this past draft in March, they drafted one of the top prospects, tight ends, Bryson Hopkins, another big body, athletic wide receiver. Tight end. Ugh, that was disgusting. Sorry about that. But anyway, they went and drafted a top prospect, one of the top prospect tight ends, Bryson Hopkins. He's explosive, catches the ball at the highest point, making plays down the field, not giving a fuck about his body. I've seen that in his highlight tapes. Like, he's diving out for that ball. So if you crack him, you crack him. But he's a big dude. So I definitely don't think he's going to have fantasy relevance here. But that tight end room is getting more crowded and crowded every year. I feel like they draft a tight end every single year, people. So it's like they're constantly going to have tight ends on deck. I don't see Tyler Higbee becoming a baby Gronk or coming, into a Kelsey or a Mark Andrews at that. You know what I mean? There's no way he's near Ertz. There's no way he's near Kittle. So how are we talking top 5 with fucking Tyler Higbee? It does not make sense. He's just not set up for that. You know what I mean? And Gerald Everett is still there, taking away those touches, taking away those looks. He's not going out for routes. Most of the time we saw Tyler Higbee protecting Goff. And that's what we needed. Our O-line is trash. What don't we understand? I don't think I need to go further into this video of what the hell's going on, of why he's not going to be a top 5 or even a week-to-week start. You're going to be playing with, matchups. You're going to be playing with, is this defense good at covering tight ends? Is Tyler Higbee going to be game scripted in? You're going to be rolling the dice every single week with Tyler Higbee, but you're going to be forced to do that. Your hand is going to be forced to do that because you got him in the 7th round or you got him in the 8th round where his current ADP is at. So it's like you're going to have to play that investment. He's going to have to be your tight end 1 because you waited so long to get a tight end, and that's the guy you chose instead of a Jonnu Smith or, a Chris Herndon or whoever else, the sleeper guys. I don't want to spew too much because my league mates do watch my videos. So I'm still trying to keep everything on the wraps because Jonathan Taylor got out. That was, obvious because of Scott Fishbowl, but whatever. It was going to get out eventually. So Jonathan Taylor, I'm a big fan of. But anyway, moving back on. So we got all these people, mainstream, or I don't want to say any names, fantasy rapper, campaigning for a top 5 performance. That's basically where I'm at with this whole video. He's not going to finish top 5. I'm not telling you not to draft him. Just don't draft him that high. You can literally wait until like the 12th, 13th round. But of course, mainstream fantasy is not going to let that happen. Let's say you're sitting there in the 10th. Well, no, let's be realistic. Let's say you're sitting in the 9th round, which I'm not against. I'm telling you, you can draft him. You're just going to have a headache. Just have a backup plan. Have an actual tight end 1, in the stash. Let him be, your flex. And you know what I mean? Where you're doing 2 tight ends, which I wouldn't recommend ever. I don't know. I'm not telling you not to draft him. Take your chances. Whatever. You're just going to be part of the Heartbreak Kid, club. He's definitely an HBK guy. So good luck with that. But again, remember, it took us 3 years, 12 weeks to get any life out of, Tyler Higbee. That just does not happen. You know what I mean? He's not going to be the focal point. And I can't stress that enough. I just can't. So I'm pretty much going to wrap it up now. I don't think I need to go into more depth of why you should, be cautious or don't draft him at his current ADP right now. Don't believe that hype train. But I'm telling you guys, you can draft him. It's just that I don't think he's a tight end 1. I don't think week to week you're going to be able to depend on him. He's going to be very touchdown dependent, definitely. But I think us having to wait 3 years, 12 weeks just to get some life out of him, that's like not enough for me. Because again, Alex Collins, Justin Forsett, Eric Ebron, who else? Dante Pettis. Like all these guys finished their seasons good. They have a little bit of flash at the end of the season, like in the playoffs. That's where people will be like, yeah, waiver wire hero, a playoff hero. They helped me win the championship. They helped me get to the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. And then they live on that moment going into the next season, not analyzing and understanding their situation is completely different, or they drafted a guy, or the guy got traded, or again, Gerald Everett's coming back from injury, so Higbee's back to blocking for Goff. So those are the things you need to look at. Those are the tools that you need to have come draft day, and hopefully you guys draft responsibly and not listen to mainstream hype. Don't listen to the hype trains, the monsters that are being created, and just draft with caution. You know what I mean? So I'm going to wrap this up. Hope you guys like this episode. Like and subscribe for me. Leave a comment below on what you guys think about this Gerald Everett versus Tyler Higbee, and that's how I see it. Gerald Everett versus Tyler Higbee. That's how the depth chart looks to me. But again, do what you guys want. I want to thank you guys for watching this, and I'll see you guys next week for another great episode of Real Deal Fantasy HQ with your boy LQ. Peace.